doing?
Well, I'm trying to put it in four-wheel drive.
Why don't we just fix it?
If you insist, you win this time.
All right. Well, all right, Max. What we got going on today?
Well, like most X-Trays, especially after dropping my transfer case, I'm having transfer case shifting problems. The push-pull rod system for the shift linkage on an X-Tray is trash. Most people have problems with it. There's several different kits on the market. There's a few other kits that still utilize push-pull rods, and there's this kit, which is the cable. This kit's by Novak, and it's designed for X-Trays, TJs, ZJs, and I believe MJs that all use the same shifter, so I'm going to retain the factory shifter and have cable linkage that should never fail me. Wanted to go this route because I didn't want to change out the shifter as well. Every other kit I looked at required, every other kit I was interested in required changing the shift handle as well, and I didn't want to do that. So we're gonna install this thing today and see how difficult it is. Yeah.
Sounds like a good time. I can't wait.
It'll be fun. Alright guys, we were a little apprehensive going into this. I've been putting it off for a while because I didn't want to pull my carpet up. There are 4 screws you have to get to remove a bracket that are under the carpet, and we managed to do it without pulling the whole carpet on the driver's side and without pulling the driver's seat. Let me show you how we did that. I pulled this tray out to make sure there weren't any screws underneath there that needed to be removed. Right here, this little faceplate just slid right to the side and popped off. I removed 1 screw there. This one slid and popped right off. I removed 1 screw there. And then we were able to lift the center console and peel the carpet back. You're going to have to get to these 4 screws or bolts. So now later on when we need to remove those, we'll be able to do that. Getting to it this way I think is the easiest way you can do it. This is the whole reason why I haven't been wanting to do this, and it was honestly pretty easy. Alright, what I'm showing you now is the Z-bar linkage that is on the transfer case shifter. So this bar has to come out, this pivot pin has to come out, and this bar up here has to come out. So we're going to go ahead and remove all of this now. For right now, I'm going to leave the lever that's on the transfer case just in case I need to move it or shift it for anything. Later on, this is coming off also. But for right now, we need to pop these off. I'm just going to wedge a flathead in there and pry, and these will pop right out nice and easy. So that'll be fairly easy. We'll pull the 4 bolts that I just showed you, and this whole bracket will come right down, and most of that will be out of there and out of our way. Taking it out is going to be really easy, I think. So I'm just going to pry this in here and twist, and she should come right out.
Ta-da!
So that's how you get those out of those grommets. You do that for all of them. Pull out those 4 bolts I told you about earlier, and you'll have most of the linkage removed.
Let me start pulling off those bolts.
Alright guys, so we've made a little progress since I showed you last. There are 2 nuts you have to take off on the transfer case where it's held to the transmission. Those were, for me, they were a 14mm. The lower one I had to do with a wrench, and the top one for me was easier to do with a really long extension and a uniwiggle and a deep socket. They're really hard to show you, so I didn't really get any footage of doing that. And another important thing you have to do is where the lever comes down on the shift lever through the bottom of the floor, that rubber grommet, you need to remove that. The easiest way to do that is to slice the side of it off with your razor blade and then just push it right out. That's exactly what I did. Came right out nice and easy. After we pulled those 2 nuts out, this entire assembly just dropped right down. So the 2 nuts you're removing are the nuts that hold this on from the inside. And then remove 1 little bolt down here. This whole assembly drops down. Now that we've got all the old stuff out, we can start installing new. The only remaining old thing I believe we have to remove is the actual lever where it comes off the transfer case. And what I was explaining with you, this grommet is exactly the same as the one I removed. I just cut that nipple off right there with your razor blade, and then it's just going to push out that way. So once you remove that, which is really easy with a razor blade, it'll just push right out. Alright, so now we're removing the arm for the shift linkage off of the transfer case. Because of the direction you turn because of the direction you turn the nut, I ended up shifting it down into 4 low. Otherwise it just kept trying to turn. Taking that off, and then I'm just gonna pry on it a little bit, pop that shift linkage off, keep your factory nut, as well as remember what position the transfer case was in when you removed the linkage, because you don't want to forget that.
There she is.
Yeah. So now we're gonna find out what's next, but in case I need to actuate that, I'm gonna remember this was in 4 low and it was angled straight down. If I need it in a different position when I assemble it, I'll just temporarily slide this over and actuate it to the position I need it in for assembly. Alright guys, so they give you these rubber grommets that have some nuts in them. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to put them through. You want the grommet side that's going to butt up against the body of the Jeep on this side of the bracket, and then the nuts will be exposed on this side. When you tighten these down, you're only going to give them, according to the instructions, 1.2 foot-pounds of torque. And so you're looking for 5 to 6 threads of the bolt to show through on this side. And the reason for that is you don't want to completely squash these grommets. You want them to have some room to, everything to shift while everything is flexing. Now you're going to install this with the bracket to the front of the Jeep and up. So it's going to go in just like this. That way a rod that goes through will attach directly to the shifter handle that's sticking down through the floor. So I'm going to go in and put this up and hold it up against the bottom of the Jeep. I'm going to have my buddy Oz here go in from the inside of the Jeep and start these bolts. And remember, not very tight. You don't want to smoke these real tight. So we'll go ahead and do that. Alright, so we got this bracket installed up in here like I was telling you. Like I said, it goes up and to the front. You get 5 or 6 threads through these. You don't want to smoke them down too tight. It feels pretty secure the way it is, and the rod is going to come through here and go to the shifter where it drops through the floor. So that's how that looks like it's installed. Let's move on to what's next. Alright, so they call this bracket the Z-shaped bracket. It's going to go on the transfer case where you took those 2 nuts off. It's basically going to go in the Jeep just like this. This is going to be pointed to the front. It's going to be the top nut, your bottom one. It's going to be real simple. Pop this in there, then we're going to put the arm on the transfer case. Remember how I told you, remember what position your transfer case is in when you take it apart, because I'm going to have to actuate that too, but I'll explain that once we get down there and show you. Alright, remember how I said remember what position you leave your transfer case in? I just temporarily slid the factory rotator arm on the transfer case shifter shaft, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it back up into 2 high. Alright, that's out of 4 low. That way.
Alright, so we got the shifter arm bolted into the transfer case. Should be connecting and routing the cable after that. Got the cable slid up there to the top bracket. He's got his washer and he's threading his nut on there now.
You want to make sure you center the nuts as close as you can to where they center on the cable. That way you have a little bit of adjustability left. I'm not going to tighten them down yet. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the ball end of this to the shifter. Make sure you have the shifter and the transfer case both in 2 high. Alright guys, so you remember how we removed the grommet from the lever for the shift handle that sticks through the bottom of the floor? This little guy comes with your kit, and there's a taper or a recess in the shift lever where the hole was that you removed that grommet from. So you're just going to go ahead and put this little guy in there, and then you're going to stab the ball screw through it and attach that to the shift lever, and the cable attaches to the ball screw. Make sure you don't forget this little guy. There'd be some slop without it. Just like that. Hey guys, so I got a little trick for you. Mine in the past has had problems with jumping out of 4-low, and as I started to adjust the cable and get everything right, I still noticed that it wanted to jump out of 4-low kind of easy and could use some more adjustment and could use a little bit of help. And I got to looking at it. The gate that 4-low would sit behind was really small, so I took a file and made that gate larger. So now it wants to stay in 4-low a lot better. I might take a little bit more off in there to help it stay in 4-low a little better, but I've already made it quite a bit better than it was. The only other thing we did down below is you turn the turnbuckle in and out to adjust the length of your cable, the length of your throw, and you can also turn in and out on the top end of the cable. As you adjust it a little bit, you're gonna notice that your positions on the shift lever change a little bit, and it'll be where you want it. So it took us 10 minutes, maybe 15 at most, of just adjusting the turnbuckle and the top end of the cable. And once we found the adjustment we were happy with, everything lines up about where it should. I'm rather satisfied with it. I really like the kit. I think a cable is going to be a lot better than a combination of push-pull rods, especially as these things flex, the push-pull rods adjust, and it used to pop out of gear. That's not going to happen anymore. It's going to stay in gear now. I love the kit. Regret hesitating. Should have installed this thing a long time ago. Right here you got that turnbuckle. In this arm you have 3 different holes for adjustability. We played with it. We found for my use the top hole was the best, and to get things lined up where I liked how everything lined up on the shift handle, we turned this turnbuckle in a ways. It was really close. I just wanted a little bit more of adjustability, so the top one that you see up here, I adjusted the top one, turned it in a little bit, and I'm really happy with it. Go through and tighten all these up once you're done. Tighten everything up. Easy. Incredibly pleased with it. Regret hesitating making this decision. Think you guys will like it. It'll fix all your transfer case shifting problems.